Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening for anyone who's joining us. Hi, Scott. Hi, Peter. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll still let some people join in on us on a very interesting conversation with both of you today. But in the meanwhile, if you can write in your chat, in our chat under this video, where you're joining us from, so we can also say hi. Throughout the session today, we're going to have a lot of time to also pick up your questions for both Peter and Scott here. So feel free just to write any messages you have in the chat. We're also going to give you some insights into a very exciting event we have in the end of the month, in the next accelerator, in the next hackathon event in Shanghai, in China. But in the meanwhile, I want to say good morning again for both of you. I see quite a lot of people joining us both on YouTube and LinkedIn from all over the world. So really exciting to see you guys. We're going to talk about a topic today that I think is interesting and relevant for a lot of people when it comes to generating ideas and generating innovative ideas, something we're trying to focus quite a lot here at ABB. I want to maybe start with both of you. I mean, you're not based in Zurich here, or we are right now. Where are you coming from, Peter?
Shay, I live in the Netherlands, in The Hague, so here for a few meetings this week, and great to have this conversation with you and talk about this fantastic and important idea that people in corporates, employees, just like in the marketplace, can have ideas and then see those come to life and change the world around them for their employees. And obviously here at ABB, our big focus on customer innovation and disruption in the marketplace.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Scott, you're from here, from Switzerland, right?
ABB is a super global company, right? I mean, I think we're in 90 plus countries. So anybody you talk to at ABB is going to be coming from somewhere around the world and a lot of good experiences. But I'm actually based here in Switzerland, originally from the US, but in Basel, Switzerland.
Basel. Oh, we had that Eurovision yesterday, the first round. How was it? How was the vibe in the city?
It's a curiosity for me always, but yeah, you can really see in the city. There's like live concerts in the street, and there's a lot of buzz going on. So yeah,
great week to be in the city. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I think we can start by maybe generally talking about why we are even talking about today, because I think that many of us have had some idea in our heads that we thought, I mean, this can actually make it. This can actually be a big breakthrough for big companies. And if only someone picked up on this idea. And I think today's conversation is going to be a bit about that, about entrepreneurship, about innovation, and how to turn ideas into actual products, into actual concepts that do very well. And who else is better to do that than you, Peter, who joined us today. So Peter Alkema has been leading innovation at ABB for a while now, and leading hackathons and accelerators. You'll say more a bit about that. For how many years?
I've been doing this in banking and then here at ABB for the last 10 or more years, I suppose.
That's the perfect person for that. And Scott Beckmeyer, who has been with ABB for how many years?
Only 2 years now, yeah.
But Scott has actually started at ABB and being part of the hackathon event, accelerator event in the past, and managed to turn a good idea into an actual solution that we'll talk about a bit about today also. And again, we want to hear from you during the session today. So if any questions you want to ask both of our participants today, both of our speakers today, just feel free to do it in the chat so we can learn a bit what you want to know. And get to know from the experts themselves what actually works, what doesn't work. And I think we can dive right into that with you, Peter. Really, when it comes to, what is the secret sauce for a good idea that makes it within companies?
So I think if we take a broader perspective, Shay.
And again, we want to hear from you during the session today.
The most important asset that any organization has is its people. Its people is the source of its ideas, its inspiration. And if you can accelerate or shorten that pipeline from the idea that any employee has, and especially people working in the front lines, engaging with our customers in our factories, they know best where to solve problems and what needs to be done. Large organizations need to encourage that and create an environment within which those people and those teams can flourish. And so, as you mentioned in my previous life in banking and now here at ABB, we want to accelerate that funnel from ideation to the productization of this value. And Scott will be able to talk about a couple of examples just now. So the idea is really that you can stimulate the progress that people want to make. And obviously in corporates, we run projects and we have a supply and a demand process, particularly in IT where we work. There is a step-by-step, process that you go through. But there is also an expectation that transformation comes from disruptive, creative thinking, especially when you get multifunctional teams together. And I think many of us have experienced a hackathon type of environment. And so the Accelerator series, a global initiative now, we've done 2 in Poland, 1 in India, 1 in Mexico, and then, as you mentioned, 1 in Shanghai next month, has just got bigger and bigger as we've realized this is a fantastic white space for us to bring employees in together. And here at ABB, we really drive this idea of collaborating. We have, a strong owner-manager culture. The ABB way gives people a lot of power over the world that they live in and that they operate to support their customers across our industries. But so too, if we can harmonize solutions and we can get reuse across the capabilities, that's, as you said, where the secret sauce, where the magic happens. So in the accelerators, we do have a hackathon, but it's multidimensional. We have learning, we have networking, we have customer co-innovation, we have engagement with the industry, academics, and other institutions where ABB, in any of the regions where we run these accelerators, wants to drive the awareness around what we do and make sure that the engagement is there to fuel and to accelerate this pipeline from the idea all the way through to the value that we want to implement for the business. And we've had fantastic results and look forward to talking through that in the rest of the session.
You mentioned a couple of concepts here: accelerators, hackathons. A couple of words about what actually they are.
100%. So this idea of entrepreneurship is that every person working in an organization should be thinking with an entrepreneurial mindset. Yes, they have a job and a role, and that's fantastic, but they naturally look around and want to improve their environment. And in our own lives, we navigate to platforms and solutions that make our lives easier. And so too, we believe that those employees have those best ideas. Now, a hackathon is really where those employees can team up, and they might have an idea or an existing project or initiative that they want to work together on, and perhaps be incentivized to accelerate the delivery of that. And there's some sort of competitive, collaborative environment where we put them together for a specific period of time. And the accelerator at ABB really is unique in the industry because it takes that hackathon idea and it extends it. And first of all, what's important is we make sure that the ideas coming into that hackathon are really well aligned to our strategic initiatives. Now, AI is a massive topic, and in Shanghai, we want to drive this idea of outrunning the industry with AI and empowering all our employees. As we know today, the tools that they have available to them give them so much power and access to information. So the other layers that we add on top for the accelerator really create a compound benefit for the investment that we put into the accelerator. So, for example, we bring thought leaders together to talk about AI, and the AI Boost as an initiative that we've been running, executively sponsored by our EC, and particularly Sami Ataya, head of our robotics division, and leading AI at ABB, means that we get the industry input into our environment around where we can use AI and leverage those tools and technologies to support the ideas, the projects that the teams bring through. And then, of course, the industry, creating an ecosystem with our trusted partners where they can bring solutions, they can bring people, and they can find meaningful interactions with our teams and divisions across ABB to continue and build on their relationships with us. We need them. We want to create a very powerful business value adding ecosystem. So those are a couple of additional aspects that make the accelerators really unique and a fantastic opportunity for employees to get involved virtually or physically at any of the upcoming events.
Oh, super interesting. Okay, I mean, I'm just trying to follow the chat right now. We have people following us right now from Poland. I see Singapore here, Iran, Dubai, Turkey, Luxembourg. Hello, everyone. Very exciting, and I really encourage you to ask questions and maybe tell us how things are working in your company. We're talking about ABB here, of course, but it's very interesting to see how people at different industries and companies are taking these ideas and implementing them. Already also seeing quite a lot of questions, so we'll get to them. Don't worry. Scott, you took part in the hackathon, in the accelerator. Tell us about your team, about your idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a beneficiary of this unique accelerator concept that Peter set up, and we're running in ABB. I've seen it go from, I think we've been about the same time at ABB, so I've really seen it go from the spark of the idea, so almost an entrepreneurial endeavor itself to set up this accelerator within ABB. I've worked in large global companies before, but I've also been an entrepreneur myself and also worked in some very high growth startups. So I've really seen different ways to do it, right? And I would say the atmosphere that this accelerator created and Peter set up is really unique, and it's really developing an environment where someone like myself, who comes specifically with a lot of ideas, maybe sometimes too many, it gives a great venue or platform in which people can contribute their ideas and actually take them themselves, take ownership and thrive in that environment. So it's really, for me, a platform that's been really important and critical to me, taking one of the ideas that we proposed, right? That was actually the problem statement came from one of our executive members brought it up.
Current
right?
issue that you had, or struggle that you had, and you found a way.
The problem was there, right? And so we, without the accelerator, we wouldn't have this pace, this speed, this visibility in order to achieve what we wanted to. So just quickly, what that was, we actually had a problem within the company for how we could better engage with the application managers in the company, and how they could make use of the data that's still there within ABB, and then also that they can better manage their applications. We had that problem brought up to us, and we took it all the way through the September accelerator, into the March accelerator, and now into the Shanghai accelerator. We now have 2 different platforms live to our customers, to our internal customers, and I would say it's scaling quite well. Yep.
Interesting. I think, Peter, just a few questions people are asking in the chat that I want to make sure that we are following up on. But generally, what common traits do you find noticing when it comes to successful ideas that are being implemented?
So first of all, the ownership from the individual, and that's got to match with the environment. And it's such a common example that Scott has raised. And when you walk the corridors and you talk to people, it's very similar. So the first and most important thing is the willingness to step up and contribute that idea. And so you have to create this helpful, well-organized process within which people can engage. Then I think you have to make sure that you have the alignment with the business and the stakeholders and the decision makers, that what you're actually going to work on and invest time is important, like Scott mentioned. And the fact that we discard many ideas before the accelerator is actually a very positive thing. Any industrial innovation funnel is going to have a 10 to 15% success rate. So you have to fill up the funnel at the front, but then you rely on the entrepreneurial mindset of the individuals to push it through that competitive, collaborative ecosystem accelerators. And Shay, what is really important, that is just copying exactly what any entrepreneur starting a business would experience in the marketplace. When they have to compete for funding and they have to build their brand, they have to get their idea. It's very similar in a corporate environment. And so those ideas that make it through and do eventually scale and come back to repeat accelerators are the ones that we know we actually should be investing in because they're viable. The teams have made it through that process. Yes, we've helped them. Yes, we've brought the partners. Yes, we've set up the environment for them. But the organization actually hasn't done it for them. We've just created the environment within which they can flourish and they can see their ideas come to fruition, and now give the value and the compound benefit to all those users who have got a better experience of the metrics and the dashboards and everything that we provide to those specific personas, the application managers that you spoke about, Scott. And we can cite hundreds of examples of those that have come through the 4 accelerators completed, and as you mentioned, the 5th one at the end of this month in Shanghai.
Good ideas don't come without challenges. What is the most challenging thing you had in your process?
Yeah, I think, we talk about kind of the leadership or the environment, right? I think the environment's super important for someone to be successful in a company. They need to know that they're enabled and that they can be engaged, and that they have support from the leadership. Now, that doesn't mean anything's going to happen unless you also have the skills or the motivation in order to go and take your idea and make it real, right? A large organization like ABB, I mean, there are 1,000 people in the company. There's going to be the right person with the right knowledge somewhere, and that entrepreneurial side is to say, I'm going to go find that person. We're going to build that team, and we're going to make that successful. So I think one of the things that's really important is being able to very to be honest, right, about where you're at in the process, and to always bring numbers with you, right? I think at the early stage we see a lot of entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs, as we call them at ABB. They come and they have the idea, they have the problem, they have the solution. But so what? And I think, why am I going to invest in this? Why am I going to support your case? And I think it's important for, even if it's a high level number, even if it's just from a conversation or a white paper that you find online, you should start somewhere in order to be able to articulate what kind of value you expect to deliver, whether it's productivity or it's cost savings or it's revenue or it's maybe customer satisfaction. I think there's different ways that your solution inside the company can ultimately benefit the business and the customer.
Very interesting. More people are joining us, and I just want to remind everyone, if you have more questions for our participants, there's quite a lot already. I'm just preparing you in advance for this, but tell us how things are working in your company and what kind of challenges your companies are struggling with when it comes to generating these ideas. I see people from Netherlands, from Nigeria joining us. Morning, good afternoon for everyone. I want to start with just going over a few questions for people because they're quite interesting, and I think that generally, let's go over what Anna is saying. And Anna is asking, can you think of how many people's ideas you personally encourage, and what specifically led you about these ideas to encourage them and push them?
That's a very good question. And when you launch an idea on its own, like the accelerators, you go into a white space, as I mentioned, where people have been talking about this. And when you create the structure, they say, yes, that's it. And that's what we need. And that's what we want to engage in. And then, as Scott mentioned, that's the platform to have the discussion. And whether it's come from partners or from employees or leaders internally, I then tend to get bombarded with a lot of ideas and suggestions that people come up with. So to answer the question, I mean, it goes into the hundreds. But the fact that we have this disciplined process that we run the ideas through, and we've got structure and frameworks, and as we, let's say, franchise this model across the organization, it's not about us who set it up. It's about ABB's usage of this framework and the ownership that we want to share of it around the organization. So those ideas are all managed in a proper database, and we map them to the capabilities that they require. We map them to the strategic priorities that ABB has, and that gives us a bit of the scoring with some of the metrics that Scott mentioned. So when we have discussions with people, we can look at those metrics, we can look at the alignment to the strategic priorities, and then we can guide people. And I think ultimately, Shay, in answer to that question, because I've got some experience doing this, I can fairly quickly get a sense of whether it's going to make it for the next accelerator or the next one, and what that sort of timeline is going to be. And very much like in the market, people, as you said, Scott, will have an idea, but that talk is cheap, to be honest. And I have to manage people's expectations about how much they can actually get done in the space and time that they have available. And so, we try and position people either, as I said, for the next accelerator or the following one, based on the maturity of their idea. So whether it's really just something that they've written down, then depending on how well we can help them and how well and quickly we can bring the resources to support them, we can look at what minimum viable product we can develop and at least get a working consumable prototype from the first accelerator that they attend. And this is common practice, and we've spoken about productization in the industry for decades now. And this is where we firmly believe that projects and the delivery of IT services especially needs to go. We need to think backwards from what the customer, our internal or external users, are wanting from the IS services that we provide. And if we can quickly productize something with a minimal set of features and capabilities that gives a minimum level of value, then that's something that people can then give feedback on. It goes hopefully into production, and then we expand the usage of it, and those people then tell us what are actually the more important features to work on. There is always a temptation to design everything perfectly before you go to the next stage. And that sort of linear, sequential, plan-driven or waterfall-style thinking is still applicable to many projects. But in the rapid pace of disruption, transformation that we're seeing in the world today, we think that productization with a MVP through an accelerator series gets people onto that scalability track as quickly as possible. And once those products are launched, and like we've seen, and Scott is one of many that have come through the accelerator program, they have something working. And the excitement now of getting the real feedback really has lit the fire for them to crack on and continue adding value and adding features to that product. So for me, it's how quickly we can get to an MVP, how quickly we can get to a consumable prototype, and how well the ideas can be formulated into a storyline that attracts further support, further investment, and further development. And then I think the last point to make is then just what do we as custodians of the IT landscape across ABB do with those ideas as they become products and as they scale up? How does that modernization help us improve other areas? And how do we harmonize and simplify and consolidate the rest of the architecture? There's a danger to add too much and complicate. We want to make sure we have simple, synthesized, reusable capabilities. This is a strong message from Morten, our CEO. Let's maximize the reuse across the organization. So great that we have products coming up, but then how does that impact what else we have and how we can drive the coordination, the collaboration across the organization with this increased drive around productization of ideas through the accelerators?
I think that maybe a bit of clarification about the accelerators within ABB is for you, Peter. Sanmi Sola has his own idea of something to develop that he thinks ABB would be excited about. And I'm seeing also some comments from Remco, hopefully I'm pronouncing the name correct, was a blockchain technology for robot authorization. In the end of the day, those hackathons, those accelerators are internal for ABB employees, or are we opening for something for the public?
So fantastic news. This morning, we've just gone live with the accelerator webpage on ABB.com, so people can click through our digitalization and AI pathway from the ABB.com homepage and read a lot more about the accelerators. And as you mentioned there, Shay, get access through our partners into that ecosystem. But yes, the primary purpose is to stimulate and drive ownership internally. And as I mentioned, earlier, if we can harness ideas through our partners and from the marketplace and through the customer co-innovation, if I look at what we did in Bangalore, we actually invited customers in for that week to come in and talk to us about our products and services and have some visibility of our internal innovation pipeline, because it all does work together. And we have to make sure that that internal innovation feeds what customers and people externally in the marketplace are seeing as a value add. And the fantastic operating model that we have at ABB means that those product teams are empowered and they understand and they know exactly what those customers need. The accelerators is just an additional value add to bring together the internal secret sauce, as you mentioned, of the human capital aligned to our strategic priorities and accelerated to support those products and services.
Janika, Jessica has an interesting question, but I actually want to turn it to you because she's asking about the tools that provide to help teams go from ideation to launch. What kind of tools do you feel that the hackathon, the accelerator, gave you?
Yeah, I think there's some tool sets as well that an organization just needs these days. Something like design thinking or being able to get user experience design, product design. These types of skill sets, I think, in an organization are super important in order to really drive what ultimately customers expect today. I think it's no longer a story of just something that increases a number here or there. I think it's also about customer experience. This is a bare minimum for how we should deliver products these days. And so I think when we talk about the tools, right, I think tools are simple, right? I think it's ultimately still a people process, right? So don't get burdened by the tool set. But for entrepreneurs, I think we see the biggest value in actually teaching them how to build the business case. I think people see the problem, they're in it, right? And I think the person that loves the solution the most is always the entrepreneur, right? They say. And so teaching them how to articulate that out and show what kind of value that's going to bring. I think that's where we see the most value in helping people bring their thing forward.
And just to add to that, Scott, we provide this sort of full end-to-end service where, as you mentioned, teams will get coaching on design thinking. We provide them with agile support, and we even give them a structure and a template for putting their pitch video together, which is then judged as part of the process. And once we see the sort of top 10, 15 use cases that come through the accelerator, we actually then start to put a little bit more time and investment into those because we want to incubate them following the accelerator so that they're going to be successful. They walk away with that increased visibility, that increased executive sponsorship. The pitch video is a fantastic artifact, possibly a consumable prototype that they hope to put into production. But those teams, just like in the industry today, need the ongoing support. And we don't just leave them. Yes, they're going to have to drive it and own it themselves in their division, in their business area. But we run incubation sessions and we brought partners in to teach them how to do that. And again, how to drive that entrepreneurial mindset, not just from the ideation to the prototype, but then from prototype to a viable product that can scale and launch and drive value in the organization. So actually, we think about that full funnel. And what's fantastic, Shay, is when we engage with the business areas and divisions, and they then also have, their frameworks and way of working, and they can leverage and partner with us. And there's a lot of synergy then between what we provide as the accelerator and what they run as their business end-to-end process, which might be slightly different across ABB. But generally speaking, as we've tweaked the accelerator model and adjusted it to how best we can partner with each of the business areas and divisions where we run the accelerators, there's a huge amount of synergy. And that's been a fantastic tool set and way of working that we brought into the organization.
A question from Frank. He's asking blockers of innovation. Which blockers of innovations do you currently see in the industry, not specifically just for ABB, that we are trying to ABB address to overcome? You mentioned a bit about AI. I think this is a word that we are hearing a lot from innovators in the last few years. So,
blockers to innovation, I think number one for me would be access to existing capabilities. So very often the idea or the prototype, will have some self-sufficient features and an architecture that can make it work on its own. And typically, we might call that a bit of smoke and mirrors. You can mock up a front end quite quickly, but it's the integration into the assets of the organization and the databases that then really actually provide the value. So for me, that's, I think, sometimes the tipping point that goes from something that you can mock up by yourself at home as a quick straw man, if you like, and it looks good on the page and it's got all the design thinking embedded into it. It looks nice and lovely buttons to click. But it's when you can integrate that in and make sure that the teams who provide that access are on board with the accelerator idea. And when they see these, product and use case teams then asking to integrate in and access that data, that there's a good working relationship for them to do that. So I think that would be number one. And then number two, we touched on it just now, but it's the what happens next question. And we do manage expectations. We might take 300-400 ideas into our funnel before the accelerator. Maybe we have 100 to 150 come through and produce pitch videos. We'll only have a top 10 or a top 5, and those are the ones really that are going to be viable that we'll invest in following the event. We certainly don't commit to helping all of them become successful because they simply won't. Not all ideas are going to go through to maturity. So we manage expectations and we then over-invest and over-support and coach and support those top ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I can just add from like a real life experience from my my use case was we have a platform that just totally got revamped within ABB, and it's a lot of our data is sitting within that platform. And if that effort, let's say 2 years ago, didn't get kicked off, and a huge team and a huge program didn't go underway to make sure that that was live and it was fresh and it was a state of the art, the stuff that I'm doing right now, I wouldn't be able to do. And so I think when we talk about blockers, Peter hit it right on. In a big company, you think that maybe a piece of software or a platform is kind of a depreciating asset, right? You just let it run, right? Pay for it and let it run. But you need to keep those things alive and vibrant because those are the steps that people are going to step off of to build the next thing, right? So that goes into AI, how we leverage our data in AI. There's a whole lot of things, but if we don't have that base to build on, you're always starting from scratch. So I think that's really important.
And the other important, very last point to make on this is the very clear articulation of the business problem that needs to be solved. And I mentioned the working backwards earlier. And when we think inside out from an IT perspective, we think we understand the business problems. We actually don't. We know our area and that, but we really have to get close to the business. We have to work backwards from them, find the entrepreneurs that can formulate and articulate those ideas, because that's what's then interesting to the decision makers and the sponsors. If you can solve that business problem for me, I'll back this and I'll provide the integration. I'll solve the blockers. I'll remove the barriers to execution. Once you've got that working backwards with a clear and succinct depiction and articulation of the storyline in words and visuals, then the blockers that you mentioned, they're still there, but they're a lot easier to remove, like Scott mentioned.
Yeah, going close to the business is happening again this in the end of May, in the last week of May in Shanghai. Maybe tell us a bit about the accelerator that's going to happen in the metaverse world, that experience we're going to offer people to join us.
Absolutely. So, and just going back to what we ran in September in Bangalore with our process automation business, was kind of a flagship event for them, where again we tested this partnership model between the platform of the accelerator and then what a specific business area wanted to do with it and how they wanted to host it on behalf of the rest of ABB. And so that gave us a very good learning ground, and working very closely with the leadership team of that business area in ABB to then set up what we're going to do in Shanghai in a couple of weeks, which is working with our robotics division and business area. And again, probably focusing on some of those use cases, as you mentioned, with a strong category of AI use cases already coming through in preparation for that event. Once again, turning that value flywheel and getting those use cases coming through as we've spoken. But in this case, very much as we've always done with every accelerator, in a way that's very relevant to that region, very relevant to the business operations, the relationships we have with the industry, and the partners that we have in that ecosystem there. So there are some nuances. We'll be in the robotics mega factory in Shanghai, very interestingly, and it's why we timed it. The following weekend is going to be the Formula E race hosted in Shanghai, which is branded with ABB and other partners, that supports our sustainability, leaner and cleaner agenda and value proposition into the market. And we'll bring some of that thinking and the metaphor of acceleration in the race into the accelerator the week before. So there's a fantastic synergy and a link because of that event. We'll also have a media briefing on the Friday. We haven't done that yet. We're also going to have our regular AI boost on the Thursday, and taking that racing agenda and way of thinking, we'll have a go-kart race, and we'll also have a metaverse panel.
Tell us a bit about that, because I think that people, I mean, the metaverse is something we've been hearing about for a few years now. What is the idea behind that? What is going to look like? What you can tell us, of course.
For sure. So the metaverse panel is going to be sort of branded with the ABB world that we live in and that
talking
we
about a
operate
virtual
in. It's going to be completely virtual, but accessible by anybody on any device.
You don't have to have a device
browser.
for that. You can have the browser, computer.
Absolutely easily accessible. Registrations are open, so please do hop on there and click the registration link. We're going to have a fantastic panel. So Mark Segura, so president of our robotics division, myself, Infosys, we're going to be on that panel talking about acceleration. We're going to have someone from the Formula E, and then people can explore the metaverse and people can experience those different audiovisual assets as you do in that avatar environment. And you posted recently, Shay, about how you set up your avatar in the metaverse.
Speak to that,
yeah. So, Accenture supporting us with their fantastic metaverse platform there, and that really opens up a way of engagement between people and between various elements of content that you want to present in a different and exciting way. And we've seen the metaverse now for a couple of years, and again, it's something that we want to experiment with and that we do very successfully in a couple of areas in ABB, for example, motion, and now that we're bringing into the accelerator. Where, as I said, we're going to have this panel and this discussion to go into more detail about a lot of relevant topics around AI, robotics, Formula E, the accelerators. So join us. It's going to be
super exciting. Anyone who wants to join, I'm going to put a link here right in the comments. It's for free to register. And again, you don't need any headset, not any VR headset. You can join from your computer, from any device you have. We really want to see all of you. So join us. Asif, Benedict, I see people joining us right now from New Zealand, Bangladesh, Yusuf from Algeria. Hello. Maybe let's take a question from him. might not be super relevant for the accelerator itself, but let me know. Would it be possible to manufacture and have robots manufactured in a bit of a hostile environment when it comes digitally? And where we are right now with AI, it's talking mostly about ethics, AI, where we are right now.
Well, the robotics world is fascinating, and we've seen in the market, obviously in China, huge ramp up in automation in factories. So in ABB, we're particularly focused on the industrial use cases and how we can help our manufacturing clients automate and speed up and drive efficiencies in their operations with our robots. And we were in the US a couple of weeks ago, actually, and you'll see even in our own factories, we use our own robots. And as you mentioned, the connected nature of the digital twin environment and the design thinking that you spoke about. And we tested a couple of sort of metaverse style robotic design planning and experimentation processes that then link into your factory floor and production processes. So I think the robotics world is continuing to rise, and it's going to be a very exciting place for us all. We've actually seen a couple of use cases come through in previous accelerators. People are driving that edge-style connectivity and computing and bringing AI into that sort of factory floor environment where you've got the automation in place already, but you need to optimize based on the requirements for the products that you make, etc. Maybe Scott, you want to add on that question?
Yeah, I think it's it's no longer that you develop AI for a robot. It's just a mutual process. I mean, AI is so critical to the development process as well. So you can now take a robot arm and train it just by moving it, right? It can understand its environment through sensors and not even need to be trained because it knows just what to do. So I think when we talk about how we're an industrial company, we provide solutions for industry. People think often about the hardware, right? But the intelligence underneath is so critical now to differentiate yourself, but B, really set your customers up for being leaders in the market. So.
Mm-hmm. Super interesting. Just a question, I think for you, Peter. As you absorb the new product and new initiatives that are coming from the accelerators, do you have any base ecosystem that integrates those new products and new ideas seamlessly into the company?
Absolutely, fantastic question. That's actually my passion is around this idea that we can take the core capabilities of ABB, which we're responsible for in Core IS, and develop more of an orchestrated core platform where those capabilities actually work together, on top of which business and use case teams can build their solutions. So every time we run an accelerator, we look at all the use cases and we engage with the teams where those use cases either need to consume those core capabilities or can help drive the maturity of those core capabilities for the benefit of everybody else. So the ecosystem is the capabilities, and we have capabilities across the whole of the business, but the ones that we're most interested in from our perspective as we drive a modernized architecture is where we provide them for everybody across ABB, and where those use cases teach us more about what business actually needs from them and where we should put our investment, our efforts to properly modernize and improve them. Because again, we don't have all those answers. We know what sort of good IT services look like, but if we can understand the use cases that people want to build on top of that core platform, then the synergy is going to be much greater. So that's the two-way partnership. I mentioned it from an interaction perspective, but from an architectural perspective, just like you see platforms in the industry today, they're useful to people when they can build their stuff on top of it. That's what they're interested in. That's the business problem they want to solve. And it helps us improve and modernize the core platform or the collection of all our capabilities every time we run an accelerator. Which is different from a hackathon, because that would just be lots of prototypes and potentially some technical debt. We want to, as you say, absorb those into the platform that drives the reuse and the availability of those modernized services and capabilities for everybody, for any future products and projects, even outside of accelerators.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just a final question for you about the momentum after the accelerator. How do you keep the momentum afterwards with ideas, with generating new ideas?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a big party, right? I mean, it's a week long. You're seeing colleagues and friends. You're meeting vendors. You're meeting customers. So I mean, it certainly is kind of this really high point, I think. But we get to do that a couple times a year, which I think when we talk about keeping the pace and not slowing down and kind of flickering out, having this kind of cadence in which we're having these accelerators is really critical, I think, to the entrepreneurs, right? I think teams that they're successful, maybe they've even won the event, there's still a lot of work ahead, and knowing that they have a venue to come back to, and that they can re-engage, it really keeps them to their promises and keeps them motivated to keep working. So I think keeping motivation, I think the accelerator is a great mechanism to do that. I think we're talking, to everybody, not just people in ABB. So I think within your own company too, I think you need to find your customer, because at the end of the day, the only people that are going to care about your thing is you and your customer, right? If you find that customer, whether it's an advocate internally or someone who's going to use it, really stay connected with them, because those are the people that are going to help you find the next customer and find the next person. And ultimately, they're the ones that are also going to open doors. So I think if you don't have the benefit of having these accelerators in your company, and you're feel a bit on your own as an entrepreneur, find the people who are interested and interesting, and also don't go alone. You go with your customer and go with your team.
Maybe final question. I see you in the chat right now from Michelle. She's asking, and I'm just going to read it as is. It's normal that not all of the ideas that we explore here will develop into a solution, especially when technology is moving so fast. What do you consider to be an acceptable level of project attrition? And how do you spot which are likely to be a successful idea and which is not?
So I think you touched on the important principle, and we spoke earlier about the environment, and it must be one of psychological safety, where people can step up and speak their mind about their ideas, as crazy as it might sound, but also the environment within which they can fail. And the faster they fail, the quicker we learn what is not viable and what we don't want to invest in. And as I mentioned, if we discard 100 ideas even before the event, for whatever reason, because they're not going to make it through the process, or if they just don't work and they can't develop a prototype or a consumable solution at the event, that's also good, because it reduces the opportunity cost of continuing to invest in those as projects, and it avoids distraction and complexity in the organization. So typical funnels are going to range. I've seen anything from AI as a category. McKinsey actually at a previous AI boost said that those funnel success rates are in single digits. As you said, just because of the perpetual disruption, and creatives are cycle destruction. So one use case in one accelerator can be redundant by another use case in the next accelerator just in a matter of months. So that's a real challenge, to make sure that other teams that are more successful feed off what's been learned from the failed prototypes and ideas in the previous accelerators. The quantification work we've done on business value, and that Scott has provided some inputs on and actually presented at the last accelerator, puts us actually quite positively in about the 15 to 20% range, based on feedback from use cases and our stakeholders across the organization. And I would have expected a higher amount, because our curation of the ideas beforehand is much more aligned to customer expectations, business priorities, and executive sponsorship. So in the industry, you would expect, I would say, probably single digits, because it's a much wider, more complex market for entrepreneurs to navigate. But intrapreneurs inside an organization like ABB, with a structured innovation funnel framework like accelerators, I would expect a higher range of success coming through those funnels. But again, I mean, it's less than a quarter, right? So, we have to recognize that driving practical accelerated innovation to achieve transformation in a corporate at scale is very difficult. But at least accelerators now give us a working set of 50 to 60 use cases over the last 18 months that we've been doing these, where we can say to the executives, if you want a sense of what's going to be viable, these are the ones that you should invest in. And we've seen that. We've seen a couple of use cases even make it to customers and start driving revenue streams and cost savings and other benefits that Scott and the team have quantified for us. And the great thing about driving that business value quantification framework is that we often then get that question, and we can cut that data based on the partner that's engaged with us, the category that the use cases are part of, either AI or automation, or the business area or the region or the division that's interested in it. So that structure, that discipline, that framework, I think is only going to get better and better with each successive accelerator.
Interesting and a very interesting conversation in the comments for this live stream today. The next time I'm going to see you is going to be in 28th of May, virtually, of course, within the metaverse. Just want to remind everyone, you can join us. You don't need to have a headset. It would be great if you have, but if you don't have, you can join us from each device you have. It's free. The registration link is in this chat, so please join us. We can continue this conversation, and I want to thank you both of you for joining us me today here at ABB. Looking forward to continuing the conversation and seeing you all in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Shay. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.
Bye.